Welcome to Disrupt You. This is the show where we'll hear what changes are headed to colleges and universities in all departments. We'll learn what innovation really means in higher education.
Welcome to Disrupt You, where I don't know about you, but we are 25% through the semester. How does that make you feel?
Okay, this is Jeff Bezos, and I'm excited to be on the show to announce that we are paying for tuition for students. But no, I'm excited. I'm excited. We're 25. It's zooming by. The energy's good. I feel like, and we've talked about.
Did you
this,
just say it's zooming by? Did you just say it's zooming by? Is that what you said?
Zooming by, but I have dad jokes. I feel like I'm getting older, and I have dad jokes now. And I appreciate the call out. The energy's good. The energy's good right now. I feel like the energy is better on at least on our campus, the students on campus. It's better than pre-COVID. I feel like people are just missing people, right? So it's that opportunity, right? So energy is solid right now. What do you think? What are you seeing in your world?
Yeah, I think it's really good. But I think there's some things that are going to emerge, right? I think we should talk about that today. Mm-hmm. Some things that are going to emerge kind of post 2021, what we're seeing now, and kind of what are we going to see long term? You want to talk about that today?
I love it. And let me ask you this. Let me ask you something to start us off, what we see moving forward. So I started off with the Jeff Bezos, right? It's Amazon. So I know he stepped down from Amazon, but Amazon's going to offer tuition to employees. That was the big story last week, the huge story. So if you're in the academic world, you probably heard this on every outlet whatsoever. I'm going to call a little bit. Okay, I'm going to complain. a little bit, but it's also like those people who complain that, Bezos doesn't give enough to charity. First, okay, they're doing some tuition, but everything I heard last week, Erin, was like Amazon is paying for all of these degrees, whatever college degree, you just go get colleged up and we're going to pay for it. Bullshit. So what the media didn't talk about was, I want to hear your thoughts. So the max is $12,000 for all of it, right? That's your max.
Okay.
Is you can get $12,000 over 4 years, right? So you can take I think it's like a couple $100 each semester. So you're taking one class a semester, basically. They're not necessarily looking at a bachelor's degree. They're looking at certificates, associates that you can afford, right? And $12,000. You can't really afford a bachelor's in many places for $12,000. And it's certain areas. They say specifically it's in aircraft mechanics, computer aided design, machine tool technologies, medical lab technologies, and nursing. That's it. Mm-hmm. So that's all they're interested in, are those things specifically. So what are your thoughts here? So one is, companies starting to get into paying for college, which I'm a big fan of, right? Starbucks is doing it. Walmart's doing it. Target's doing it. I love this kind of trend going on. But then also choosing the degree. We say you have to have one of these degrees. What are your thoughts when you hear all this?
Well, I think you've got to be clear as a company about why you're doing it. So I think it's hard for Amazon to say we're doing this to promote the world or to make society better because because if you're picking what they're doing and knowing what they're picking it for their benefit, right? So just be honest about that. That's one thing. I mean, it's mutually beneficial. That's how you should be spinning this, right? Mm-hmm. Not as we're trying to save humanity by letting people go to college, right? We need these professions. People need more education. Let's have this mutually benefited thing, and we're going to help pay for it. That reads authentic and true to me. Whereas they're trying to spin it as oh my gosh, look at we're Amazon. We're here to save the world. I'm like, no, you're here to save yourself. But that's okay. That's what companies do. I don't have a problem with a company saying we want you to get it in something in our field. I don't even have a problem with some companies, depending on how much they give you. You have to stay at that company for X number of months or a year after you complete your degree. Because again, part of this is for retention, right? It's another way of retaining employees by skilling them up and hopefully building them up within your company, getting them more pay. But I think you've got to be really honest about why you're doing it. What does the employee get from it? What does the company get from it? Because very few companies are probably just out of the kindness of their heart trying to skill up employees, right?
Yeah. And this isn't, I totally get what you're saying too, because this isn't even new. I know when I was in the full-time in the corporate world, they had this, right? Where they would pay for your master's, right? And that was a big thing, especially for grad, not so much for bachelor's because you got to get that to get the job, but it was master's. But can you take a guess? And this is what I see most common. This is at least from my personal opinion. There was one master's degree that they wouldn't pay for. And this isn't every company, obviously, but just in my couple companies, it was always this one degree, one master's degree they wouldn't pay for. You want to take a guess?
Well, some won't pay for the MBA anymore. Is that what you're talking about?
It wasn't an MBA.
Okay. I don't know. What was it?
It was a JD, a law degree.
Okay.
Law degree. Because it kind
of didn't want you to
out
strategically think them.
Yeah. And it was kind of what you said, though, because a law degree, if I work in marketing or et cetera, once I get that law degree, I'm probably not helping that company anymore, right? I'm probably going sales. So it kind of comes to what you're saying, that the company is, mutually beneficial. I love what you're saying there, right? And this is what grinds my gears too, is I think it's amazing. I think it's absolutely amazing that these companies are stepping up. Chipotle stepping up, Starbucks stepping up, Target, Walmart, paying for education. And, it's a pet peeve of mine. It's like my driving value in trying to change education like that. When we talk about innovation, like literally the reason I do that is like we need to decrease tuition. It's costing too much. There's too much debt. And what does it say that these companies have to say, hold on, what the hell is going on in the world? Let's step up and do it, because the government's not doing it, because these universities aren't doing it. These people aren't doing it. So now Starbucks, who makes your coffee, I guess we're going to have to step up and fix this situation. What does that say about the financials aspect?
Yeah, I mean, you and I both know education, higher ed specifically, is in a rough place right now because we've got to figure out this financial stuff. We've got to figure out how to lower the cost of education. And what we're seeing is, and you see this with Amazon, they're not requiring you to get a bachelor's degree. That used to be, and remember when companies used to pay, it used to be a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. And now they're saying you can get certificates in these areas, or you can go to a tech school, or you can go learn, these other trades. That's shifting. I think that thought process is different. I think it also is something we've got to be aware of, that, okay, well, if Amazon will only give you $12,000 and you can put a drop in what you need to pay for your bachelor's degree, or I could get 2 or 3 certificates with it. What are they going to choose? What are you going to choose? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think this, another awesome news story that's coming up, and this is just right out the gate, is these rankings, right? And what's going on with college rankings. And if you've ever researched, like, college rankings is just a scammy system. It
really is.
It's all about what kind of industry do you get to say, I get to educate the youth. But guess what? We turned away 93% of them that wanted it. What? Get the hell out of here with that. So Forbes came out and said, in their rankings, in their college rankings, right? There's multiple of these rankings, right? Forbes isn't necessarily the top one, but it's up there. They're going to start including Pell Grant recipients. How many students do you have on Pell Grants at your university? Which I think is amazing. I was a Pell Grant student, Erin. I couldn't afford to go to college. I wouldn't be in college. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Pell Grant. The government saying, hey, this poor kid over here is also worthy of education, just like that, Rolls Royce kid over there. What do you think about these college rankings and what Forbes doing with increasing showing percentage of Pell Grant students that go to your university and that having an impact on your ranking? What are your thoughts on this?
I absolutely think I love it. I love it. So I think institutions should be focused on what percentage of your students are Pell eligible. I just do. It's like it's a problem if there's not Pell eligible students at your institution. For a whole host of reasons. Is it you're not recruiting students that are Pell eligible? Is it not you're not accepting students that are Pell eligible? Or one of the worst, even with full Pell, they can't afford your institution. So what are you doing to make it affordable for Pell eligible students? So I think there's a lot of flaws if you do not have a healthy percentage of Pell eligible students at your institution, and that you need to be taking a look at why is that. And so I love that that's included in the ranking. Of course, you know, people could come at me and say, well, this is why, or this is why. There's a whole host of reasons to everything. And the rankings are not perfect, as we know, as we've seen, as continues to come out. But I love that how many of your students or what percentage of your students are Pell eligible is included in the rankings. I think that's awesome. And I think it's going to push institutions to have to think more strategically or think differently about recruiting and retaining and all of that. So I love it.
Absolutely. And I hope that this conversation of, you know, I think that conversation of tuition, of debt coming out was already going on, kind of increasing in conversation. But I hope that as we talk about when we get to post-COVID, right, we're in a better place now than we were a year ago. But when we're past post-COVID, which is kind of what we're talking about today, that it can be more of a conversation of, okay, let's talk about this stuff. Because, you know, in the workforce, I'm sure everyone listening, you know, there's a lot of career areas with restaurants and whatnot that can't find employees, right? Mm-hmm. People are saying, I'm done with it. I'm tired of it. You're not paying me what it's worth. If you can't afford to pay a waiter or waitress minimum wage and not $2, you shouldn't be an establishment. You just, sorry, your business plan doesn't work. So you need to close. I hope that same conversation happens with higher ed, and people say, hey, it's time to get our shit together, right? We need a new model though. Right? It's a new model. I'm not just saying we're just going to slash prices of tuition, because you're going to go under real quick under that. All right. But what's that new model, right? What are those new changes that we can do? And here's, Erin, you can call me out. I made a wrong prediction.
Oh, I love it. Let's hear it. I love when you're wrong. It makes
so in the beginning of COVID, right? In the very beginning. So, you know, Erin, we worked together, and I've for years said 2025 was going to be the Armageddon. Right. That was the year that you're going to lose admissions. You better figure yourself out, or you will not be an institution in 2025. Beginning of COVID, I was like, man, this is going to escalate that. We're going to see, my big thing was everyone's going to hurt. Everyone across the board. Higher ed's going to hurt. And these Google certificates and these, you know, sharks in the water of big tech, they're going to survive. And I was wrong in the sense that I didn't think of one area. And that's what we talk about with these Forbes rankings, is the upper echelon, these Ivy League schools increased the number of students applying to their institution, where everyone else decreased. Middle and low and small institutions, middle institutions, they all decreased in admissions and applications across the board. But these higher level, like Harvards and the Yales and MITs, increased. Why is that? Why did COVID do? What did the last 2 years? Why did that change? I have no idea. I don't
know either. I don't know. I mean, this could get into a whole economics and what happened in terms of our stock market and where money is flowing in our economy. And I don't know. I don't know the right answer. But it does go to show you that if anyone took a hit, it wasn't the richest, right?
Yeah.
If anyone took a hit from this pandemic, I'm not saying you didn't lose some of your money or one of your, you know, I don't know, but if the elite institutions are having more applicants, then it's not, you know, the financial realm didn't change, right? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, because you still need a lot of money to go to those institutions for the most part, right? Like they can tout like, oh, this X number of people are here on a full scholarship, whatever. But for the most part, you need money to go to those Ivy League schools. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that people with less money, even like anything less, you know, if you're not going to an Ivy League school, have a lot more options, right? And we've got certificates, and what that's showing is, I think the elite, that's still not an option for them, but everyone else I think they're like, okay, we only have X here's our resources. What's the best bang for our buck, right? Because that never really was an option to go to an Ivy League school, but now there's all these different options in the realm of others, these certificates or different types of programs. I don't know.
So let me pitch you on an idea to change the system up. Okay.
Let's hear it.
So I'm looking at this, I'm seeing what's happening, and the rich are getting richer, right? These Ivy Leagues, the Harvards, the MITs and whatnot. And if you ask me, I can ask you the same question. If you ask me though, here's my answer, is if I could send my daughter to Harvard, would I? 110% yes. Even though I know that the education, what you're learning, like from a quantitative level, is going to be the same. It's based on your grit, right? If you are a driven individual, you will thrive in Harvard. You're going to learn just as much as you go to a state school in Missouri or somewhere else. Like that's your drive. But here's the difference. Going to Harvard is the community that you associate yourself with, being in close proximity to other individuals, right? And because a lot of that is because of financial standing and their parents and whatnot, but they're going to be able to rise the ladder very quickly simply because of who they know. So the question is, if we know that's working really well for Harvard, it's basically who your classmates are and who they know, right? Will help you get big time jobs. How can we build a fantastic, intricate sense of community everywhere, whether that be online, right? I struggle with that with my online classes, right? Like getting that sense of community that you have, that you lean on each other. Like, how do we develop? Because if you're online, you're now reaching out there the whole United States of VPs and managers and whatnot. And then you've got your graduate students in your programs that are hiring managers. You can connect with your bachelor's. Like there's that opportunity there for community with online. How do we do it though? How do we get that sense of community?
I don't know, but I do know it's going to it takes a lot of intentionality. I think this feeling of like it will just develop has to go away. We have to cultivate it. And we're going to fail a lot. Like we're going to try things and they're not going to work. But we're going to see that they do work sometimes. Dustin shared with me, he has an online student who is his online students are able to join his Zoom if they want to. It's an option. And he had this student like do her elevator pitch. And he's like, wait, the students on my online class, did she know that she had to take it? And she said, no, I wanted feedback. I wanted live feedback from her peers. She wanted to practice it. And so like, that's a teeny tiny example, but that is building community, right? Like that is taking an online student and giving them the option to do it. But we have to be intentional about it. And like I said, it's going to fail. We're not going to hit the mark a lot in this area because we don't know what we're doing. We're developing something that's never been developed. Is this like on ground? It's really easy for this like natural and like, it's just easy to build community. And it makes sense because you see people at Starbucks and then you see people here. You have to like artificially build that. If you want to connect your online students, and it feels weird, I think. And I think for me, sometimes feels a little inauthentic because we've been building these in-person relationships for so long. But what do we know from COVID? We had to try harder in that area with our employees. We had to try harder in that area with our coworkers. We had to try harder in that area with our students. Why? It's going to be the same for our online students. And so the intentionality has to go up, and we have to get comfortable with that doesn't work until we figure out what the formula is. And the hard part is the formula is going to change over and over and over again because the population of our students is going to continue to change and evolve. And we got to get comfortable in that uncomfortable space. And we have to make that community and networking as big of a priority as we are elevating the educational experience. I feel like a lot of us have figured that out. We've figured out how to get the online education to the level we want it to. We've got higher level production teams. We've got better ways to take tests without cheating. We've got better ways to assess learning. We've got better feedback, better discussion boards, but we have not figured out how to build that community experience. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Why don't, when you're talking, this is the big question that comes to mind. Why don't more universities have a research and development department? Just like all these other big companies, your favorite battery company, your favorite car company, all these companies, Amazon obviously has a huge one. Why doesn't University of X, right, have a research and development department? That is all they do, is research and development of higher ed. Man, that would be, if Harvard and their crazy endowment chose to say, hey, we're going to put $1 billion behind research and development, you could change the world, right? If you hit on, like what you say, just one thing, you're going to test 100 things. If one thing hits, you could literally change the world of education. Right?
Because I think as an industry, we are really afraid of the B word, that this is a business. We're really afraid of that. And we've got to get out of our own heads about it, because at the end of the day, this is a business. And at the end of the day, we can still want to make the world better through education. We can still want to make people's lives better through education. But the reality is, we have to figure out how to do that really, really well, really efficiently, really on brand. And what better way to do that than to recognize ourselves as a business and to recognize that we need things like research and development teams. We need to be investing in that. Yeah, we need to invest in research. We need to invest in teaching and learning, but we've got to invest on our customers' experience so that it is what everyone wants. Because you're right. Just this one little example of people want a network. They want to leave with a network. Sometimes they don't know that that's what they need. They think they need the degree, which is true. They do. But that network, as you know, is really, really strong. And so how do we also return on investment, give that to our students and see that as a high priority? And I really think it's because as an industry, we're afraid of that. We're afraid of calling ourselves a business.
Yeah, absolutely. If Chevy's trying to use research development and strategy and innovation to increase the number of sales of cars, we should do the exact same process to get people educated, whatever that means. Educated in philosophy, write better, think about your community better, think about healthcare, whatever it is, right? So I think you're great at this. You keep saying that we need new terms for things like liberal arts and whatnot. We need a new term for, it's that business married with education, bettering yourself as a human, right? I'm not saying go out there and, we're trying to make everyone into a Wall Street hustler, right? We need people that can serve their communities, right? But that research and development business side, put into that. I've got one more question for you, right? For our show today. I was thinking about these things of post-COVID, right? We're talking about these post-COVID things. What can institutions do? And here's something that's been rubbing me here recently. I don't know about you, but in my area, so my daughter goes to junior kindergarten, right? And
she's getting so big.
Yeah, big, real big. I know you have amazing children. We've been out to the lake together. Amazing. We have some great kiddos. So I don't know about you, in this area, there's like a shortage of bus drivers. There's a shortage of teachers. There's a shortage of cafeteria workers. And we're seeing that nationwide. Are you seeing that where you are, shortage?
Yep.
Yep. So here's the issue. Okay. We need to think about post-COVID. Last question I want to pose to you for today. So we see nationally that for the majority of all universities, the area that pays the least, that requires a bachelor's degree, I say requires you can't do it without a bachelor's degree, that has the lowest salary is teachers, right? K through 12 teachers. And we're seeing this shortage right now. We just talked about where employees across the board are saying, no, you're not treating me well, you're not paying me enough, etc. So what can we do? Because I'm sure we graduate teachers all the time. A lot of universities graduate a lot of teachers every year. But the issue is, And I can understand this. If I leave with X amount of debt and I graduate with my bachelor's degree in education, going to teach that, but I see the starting salary over there is not very good. Knowing that I have this much debt, I'll say, my passion is teaching, but because of this debt, I need to go over there and be district manager for an eye care solutions something, right? Because it pays more. Like, what can we do? I know there's forgiveness programs, but what can we do? I'm seeing this right now of just teachers supporting those K through 12 teachers. We get those passionate people into those schools. What can we do on the higher ed side? Or I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I actually think this is less of a debt concern, not to say that isn't a concern, and more of a burnout concern. I think we are now, do I think that their salary should be higher? Yes. Do I think we should continue to fight for that as a country? Yes. Yep. But I think we're burning our teachers out bad. Think about what they've been through in the last year. I mean, it was crazy. It was a mixture of you're required to be online and in person, or switch, or we don't know. I mean, I think, and part of it was the administrators just didn't know. Like, there wasn't a solid plan. People felt like they were getting thrown into it. There's a mix of not masking. I mean, everything that we're going through as a country, I feel like really compounded into our education system very hard, like really hard. And, you know, teachers have to deal with parents who want their children to mask, or don't want their children to mask, or want them to mask, or want them to vaccinate, or want to be online, or want to be in person, or they're not getting enough support. I mean, I think there is a high level of burnout right now for our teachers, and where we're seeing the, what do they call it? The mass resignation now after major life, things. We saw this after 9/11. We're seeing it after pandemic. I think teachers are getting really hit hard, and education's getting hit hard in this. Is this what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yep.
And I think they're just getting pounded. And the pay's not great, so it's compounded with my pay's not great. Right now their hours are out of control because they're trying to figure out all of this. And they're just living in such uncertainty. And that has to be hard. I know it's hard for our instructors at this level, but it's different. I think I think it's totally different at the K-12 level right now. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I will openly say that I will never say that I was worked as hard as a middle school teacher at X middle school. 100%. Yeah. I think, what can we do to support those individuals, whether they be new structures and whatnot? Again, I have no experience whatsoever in the K through 12 industry, but man, there's something there. So I'm curious. So out to listeners, tweet us. What are your thoughts on, things post-COVID? What are areas that you're thinking about that we're getting hopefully to the tail end? Hopefully, what do you see changing in higher education? Comment in this video if you're watching on YouTube. Comment here if you're listening on podcast. Tweet at me online. Twitter handles on the podcast, and send us a question. Maybe in the future we'll do. I love to do an episode of just like questions from audience. I think that'd be super fun. Next week we have a pretty exciting episode. We have our boss. Our boss is on the show. The president of our university, Dr. Mark Lombardi, is the president of our university. He's gonna be on the show. And Erin, here's my goal. My goal is not to get fired. I think we're going to try to get some tough questions. We're not going to do softball questions. We're not going to be, what's your ideas? We're going to get some interesting questions out there. And I'm going to hope my office isn't packed in a box after that podcast. What do you think?
They're not going to pack it for you. You're going to have to pack it yourself. I'm just being real. Okay.
I'm going to pack it myself. Absolutely. All right. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Disrupt You. Have a question for the host? Just send that over to Dr. York via Twitter at Prof. D. York, and it could be featured on the show. We'll see you next week for another dive into the future of higher education.